What's up everyone? Welcome back to my channel. I am Lolise and we are going to continue to talk about Colleen Ballinger today. Some interesting developments have came forward, so I wanted to discuss them here. And yes, one of them is Trisha Paytas' video. So it's been a hot minute since I talked about Trisha Paytas. So we'll be talking about that. And then also before that, a blog post that I found from an article. So I wanted to read that to you as well. But before we get into all of that, if you have not already, please don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell icon so you get a notification every time I post. And please don't send anybody that we talk about in this video any hate, negativity, nothing like that. These are just my thoughts and opinions based on what I'm seeing play out on the internet. So if you have something to say about what we're talking about, just shoot it down in the comments below. That's what they are there for. Yes, we are going to talk about the Trisha Paytas video, but first, I actually wanted to talk about something that came out first. And this is a blog post from a show writer who actually worked on Colleen's Netflix show. So this woman was a writing assistant. Actually, she had a few titles on this show. Her name was April Corto-Quio. I'm sorry if I totally butchered your name, ma'am. I hate that. I have a hard time with just saying names. But anyway, this woman is super legit from what I at least could kind of see on the internet. I looked at her Instagram. I looked at her IMDb. Now, she doesn't have this listed as any credits, but she had a bad experience. I probably wouldn't want to list that either, especially now. But she did, however, list that she worked on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and I saw her credits for Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I was like, oh my god, I love that show. So already on her side with this, but honestly, for real, the stuff that she outlines in this blog post is quite disgusting and disturbing, so I just wanted to dive into this. We're gonna dive into this first because, I mean, honestly, there's not much introduction I can do for the stuff that she outlines in this. So this is from her website. She just started recently. I think it's also a newsletter, so you can sign up for it. I will link it down below. And it is called You Owe Me an Apology. I feel like Colleen really owes her an apology. So the title of this post was on cancel culture, accountability, and being in the writer's room with Miranda Sings. Sigh. It starts off with, this post is going to be different than my other ones. So before I get into it, I just want to state for the record, the following post details my personal experience while working on Haters Back Off, and more broadly, my opinions on working in the less than ideal creative workplace environments over the years. While I cannot speak to the specific allegations against Colleen Ballinger, I stand with every single one of the children and young adults who have bravely shared their experiences in the past few weeks. In the face of attacks from online gaslighters and bizarre, callous ukulele soundtracked response videos, they deserve to be supported, heard, and believed. For more background on the allegations, I recommend Becky's TikTok, Adam's YouTube page, and Paige Christie's overview video, this article from NBC News, this one from Huffington Post, and this one from Rolling Stone. She does include some pictures. One is her sad little desk at her Haters Back Off headquarters, her at season 1 premiere trying to make a best of it, which sounds like, it was an awful experience, and then her in the writer's room surrounded by Miranda Sings memorabilia, including this paper mache statue or piñata. I'm not totally sure what it was. Being the writer's assistant, showrunner's assistant, writer's PA on Haters Back Off, you heard that right, 3 job titles, and still, every month that I made rent was an absolute miracle. Was my first real job in Hollywood. A fresh face, recent college graduate, I had been warned that your first job in a writer's room can be grueling. It's customary to spend years paying your dues, working long hours, fetching countless happy vegan salads and skinny vanilla lattes for higher-ups, the usual fare. And I was prepared for that, excited even. What I wasn't prepared for, however, was the unique set of circumstances that I was walking into. Despite my legacy of being extremely online, I was not familiar with Miranda Sings, the character at the center of the show. I remember the night before my first day on the job, I clicked on her YouTube channel and watched video after video in pure confusion. Isn't this supposed to be for kids? She's dressed like Bozo the Clown, but she kept making odd jokes about being, well, and in one clip, I saw her on stage encouraging what appeared to be a small child to literally reach into her pants and rummage around a bit. I texted my friends hoping one of them could explain her appeal to me because clearly I was missing something. The show was going into pre-production at the peak of her fame, and this woman was huge. She had a New York Times bestselling book, Jerry Seinfeld's stamp of approval, and millions of fans, mostly middle school age, who hung on her every word. I didn't get the comedy, but I chalked it up to a matter of taste, packed up my studio rented laptop and my brass script braids, Brads, I don't know what that is, and headed for my first day of work. This was 2016, only a few months after fellow April, Rain that is, launched the Oscars So White campaign. So it goes without saying that I was the only black person in this office. And as uncomfortable as that made me feel, as a person of Midwestern experience, I knew how to make nice in a white space. Upon meeting Colleen, my first impression of her is that she was boisterous, opinionated, and had a stunning lack of humility that was unlike anything I had ever seen. Immediately upon entering the writer's room, I was treated to story after story about her sold-out shows, how obsessed her fans were with her, and the lengths they would go to get her attention. On the second day, she held in a small portion of her collection of art made by her beloved Mirfandas. This included several papier-mâché Miranda heads, homemade figurines, stacks upon stacks of fan mail, and drawings of something called the Daddy Saddle. The Daddy Saddle, I would come to learn, is an item featured in many of Miranda Sings' videos, and it is used to allow Miranda to more easily ride around on her uncle's back. The uncle character is something that Colleen took great pride in. She had spent years building him into the essential Miranda Sings lore, and once we began to break for stories for the show, it became clear he was going to be an integral part of it. Miranda and Uncle Jim had a, in the character's words, special relationship. She would often pitch stories in which Miranda and Uncle Jim would be caught in compromising positions or stomach-churning moments of intimacy that could always be easily explained away by a clueless Miranda. It was my responsibility to write down every single one of these pitches, schedule calls to look at mock-ups of the Daddy Saddle that would be featured on the show, and mark points in the script where Colleen thought we could even make Uncle Joe even more. Colleen Ballinger can say that her stuff is PG-13 all she wants. This is still not even appropriate stuff for a 13-year-old, in my opinion. This just isn't appropriate stuff, period. But also, Colleen full well knows that like people going to her shows are much younger than 13, and this is the kind of jokes that she's making for this audience. The Daddy Saddle, honestly, I'm kind of speechless. Let's just continue on with what April has to say. As you can imagine, this all made me so uncomfortable. Yeah, because you're actually a mature adult that's not a freaking weirdo. Here I was, the odd one out in every conceivable way, tasked to aid Colleen as she pursued her singular goal of shoving as much incestual innuendo into the show as possible. Well, asagi, I'm sorry, I don't know what that word is. The growing behind-the-scenes concerns that the show was alienating the intended audience, which was, again, kids. It all felt deeply wrong. She would show us photos of the packed rows of smiling children who had attended her show the night before, and in the same breath, spend hours trying to think of a way to show Miranda and Uncle Jim all but have actual sex on screen. I felt insane. This was my first job, a coveted writer's assistant position, and I was terrified to be seen as anything less than enthusiastic to be here. Colleen made accomplishing that a Herculean feat. It's at this point in the story that I have to wonder, what is Colleen's problem? What issues does she have going on where she thinks this is funny? And okay. I'm sorry, I think my brain might be malfunctioning. But don't worry, it gets worse. Not only was I behind the keyboard, typing in jokes into the script that, to a vulnerable child, could easily make it nearly impossible to identify inappropriate adult behavior in their own lives, but as we neared production, I had a whole new wave of concerns. And that first concern that she just mentioned about how it might make it harder for kids to actually identify dangerous situations, and that's one of my main problems, is that Colleen, through these jokes and through all of this, is like normalizing these kinds of interactions with kids, and that puts them in dangerous situations because then they start interacting with the wrong people. Another one of my responsibilities was to sit on production meetings, all virtual, as the writer's room was in LA and filming was to take place in Vancouver, and take notes. It was in those meetings I had to document Colleen's insistence that we use limited POC background actors as the show took place in Washington, and having them just randomly there would be distracting. So she didn't want anybody who wasn't white, pretty much, in the background of her show, because if you're not white, it's distracting to have you in the scene. Okay. I took note as Colleen was shown an Asian food market that would be redressed as a bodega for the show, and watched her disgust as she demanded assurance that all the Asian would be removed before filming. I sat patiently as the powers that be expressed concern that the entire main cast for the show was white, and silently prayed that since somebody with actual say had spoken up, things might change. And I took note yet again as Colleen assured them that they had only casted the best person for each role, and it wasn't her fault that all those people ended up being white. All of this Colleen Ballinger stuff gets just darker and darker. I wonder if she's going to address this. And then she shares a text message that she sent to a friend of hers that she would vent to. We were rewatching auditions from earlier this morning. Watched a tape of this black actor who is very fine, by the way. But anyway, the lighting wasn't great, and Colleen just shouted out loud, "Where is he?" implying he's so dark-skinned he disappeared. 1, you can totally see him. It was just overcast this morning. The fuck? 2, black is beautiful. 3, get me the fuck out of here. I don't even want to say what Colleen's doing is microaggressive, because this is just like aggressive. And it makes me wonder what people around her speak like and act like, because if she is just totally comfortable like this in a professional setting, filming for a Netflix show, what is she like behind closed doors? Content of the show aside, it was difficult to work for Colleen. She had a knack for making funny, biting comments about the people around her, and since we all had her to thank for our jobs, we were forced to just go with it. She saw no issue with commenting about my hair, or my clothes, or asking about my personal life. Her lack of boundaries was remarkable. Most days, the first hour or so of work was dedicated to Colleen forcing us all to perform the emotional labor of counseling her through her marital concerns. So not only is she dumping this on teenagers in group chats, she's also dumping this on the people who are working on her show for Netflix. Be a listening ear to her complaints about fans. They were being so sensitive lately, aka they had spoken up about their discomfort with her using a black scent, and the latest updates on the antics of her fellow YouTubers. I recall overhearing her once brag that a creator was being canceled for saying the N-word, and if you think she went with the N-word instead of hitting that hard R, then you haven't been paying attention. And she would never be stupid enough to get caught doing something like that. She gave me the honor of naming a character after me, a villain at Miranda's school who thought she was better than everyone else because she was a Christian. Colleen made it known on several occasions she could tell I was less than thrilled with the show, even once pulling me aside and quipping, "You totally hate this, right?" I could tell my discomfort with the art that we were creating was notable to her. She would often pitch something vile, then look over at me and ask, "Any thoughts, April?" It was almost like she took a weird pleasure in making me uncomfortable and knowing that even if I wanted to, there was absolutely nothing I could do about it. She was cruel, and it was that same cruelty that I recognized in the video she posted on Wednesday, addressing the many allegations that have been piling up against her over the last few weeks. My 2 seasons on Haters Back Off were unfortunately not my only experience being deeply uncomfortable in the workplace while in pursuit of my dreams of becoming a television writer. I have worked with sexists, with racists, with people who called me a diversity hire behind my back, with people who wanted applause for resisting the urge to touch my hair despite all its delicious textures, and with people who were both threatened by my voice and desperate for my approval. And each time I encountered yet another abuser in the workplace, I noticed they all seemed to have the same thing in common: an unwavering contempt for cancel culture and a pathological failure to demonstrate even an iota of accountability. Let me be the millionth person to say it. Cancel culture is not real. The majority of people I know who've worked in this industry have spent years of their lives waiting and hoping that an article will finally drop, naming the sins of the abuser they endured and finishing them for good. And each one has had to stand by and watch as that person is dragged on Twitter for a few days, removed from a project or two, and is back on their feet for the next year's Emmys. There is no witch hunt, no toxic gossip train, no dangerous mob hellbent on destroying the lives of an innocent person just for something to do. The truth is, there are real people who have had real experiences that have affected them a great deal. And there are narcissists who choose to cover their ears and look the other way. I don't know what's next for Miranda Sings, but one thing I do know is that Adam and Becky and Johnny and everyone else who has spoken out are all owed, at the very least, a thoughtful, sincere apology apology, one that acknowledges the very real pain they are clearly in and gives them the respect they deserve, and is 100% ukulele free. And while she's at it, I would love my $250 back for the hour I just spent having to explain all of this to my therapist. So all of that laid out about working on Colleen Ballinger's show, like the aggressive nature of her towards this writer's assistant who apparently was the only black person on set. Like I can't even call this kind of stuff microaggressive because it just feels outright aggressive to me. And then I cannot imagine this being your first job and somebody who is the star of the show and has a heavy influence in the story production is telling you they want more incest jokes between their character and their uncle, and you know this show is being marketed towards kids. What is Netflix thinking as well? Like, who from Netflix was anyone paying attention to this at all? I didn't even know that she had a Netflix show until this started, but like, what is going on? But I hope that April has moved on to more amazing projects. I believe actually she's working on a show called Loot, which I don't know what that show is, to be honest, but when I like quickly glanced at it, it seemed like it had like a big fan base. So anyway, good luck to her on that, and I hope all of her work environments are much more pleasant experiences than this. I really thank her for coming forward and being brave and honest, because I know obviously that's very scary. And you know what, to be honest, I guess I'm not totally surprised. Actually, right before I filmed this as well, my real life friend who has been following the Colleen Ballinger drama sent me a clip from the person that April mentioned, Becky from TikTok, and it is a clip of Colleen Ballinger performing her live show. She's coming out to performing as Beyonce in Single Ladies. This is from 2018, and she comes out in blackface. I'm sorry, by 2018, we all knew better that you don't do that. It doesn't matter what the intention is, especially when it comes to something like blackface, your intention behind it of, it was a joke, it was made to be funny. The intention doesn't matter when the outcome of people being hurt is still the same. And I actually hope that Colleen can take some time to educate herself on the history of blackface and why it is actually very harmful, and how her joke of her coming out as Beyonce and doing a Single Ladies rendition actually plays completely into the harmfulness of blackface. I'm not gonna make my entire video about this because honestly, I'm not sure I'm somebody who is 100% capable of explaining it. Maybe if I had to write like, a college essay and do more research, but regardless, like, there's never an excuse for it. Now, let's talk about Trisha and her video. This video was titled Colleen. It is 21 minutes long, so not too terribly long. At least she doesn't sing in this as well. That's also very appreciated. But I honestly have not been paying that much attention to Trisha. The last thing that I really heard about her was the fact that she was starting this podcast with Colleen. In the beginning, Colleen made it seem like this was just a one-time thing. They were just doing one podcast, that was it. She made it seem like she was really not into it and was kind of making Trisha look like desperate and stupid. But they've had 3 episodes of this now where they get dressed up in costume. Trisha actually made a set in her home for this. So because they have started a podcast, I, have been curious, like many others, if Trisha's gonna say anything. They actually had a live stream where people were starting to spam the chat and the moderators were deleting things. But, other YouTubers who are close with Colleen, like Daniel Prada and stuff, have not been speaking out about it. So I was curious too if Trisha would, and what she would say or not say if she decided to speak up. Well, I got my answer. Trisha decided to post her Colleen video. Part of it, what I think, was really because she did kind of get dragged into it a little bit, and she was somewhat victimized by Colleen. Like, I will admit, though Trisha has done some really crappy things in the past, that doesn't mean that what Colleen has done here that we're going to talk about isn't crappy as well. So I do feel bad for Trisha in regards to some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about, or some of the stuff that she talks about in this video. So in this video, she's actually very serious, and she's not like in her manic, like talking super fast, like gasping for air kind of thing. And it's not that we've never seen Trisha like this. It's just when you see her, being actually really serious, and she obviously, you know, she does look visibly upset. You tend to take it a little more seriously than when she is in those like other instances where she was going off about Shane Dawson and things like that. And I think that speaks to the fact that Trisha kind of recognizes that what's going on here with Colleen, this is some next level stuff. And she cannot publicly ignore this stuff any longer. I mean, especially because like her nudes are being dragged into this. It has been leaked that these messages from Colleen to Johnny and possibly, allegedly, maybe Adam McIntyre at the age of 14 in a chat with Colleen where she is sending explicit photos of Trisha Paytas from Trisha Paytas' OnlyFans, which is behind an 18+ paywall, sending nudes of somebody else to body shame them and make fun of them. And she's sending them unsolicited in a chat that also has somebody who is under the age of 18. And apparently Colleen would also have viewing parties with her friends where they would come over and watch videos on Trisha Paytas' OnlyFans and make fun of her. And Trisha does make mention of seeing videos and pictures of them doing this at Colleen's house. Now, I have seen some of the messages that were leaked. I'm not posting them here or reading them out here or anything because one, they're just disgusting, and two, they would totally get my video banned from YouTube. I would totally get like a strike or something on my channel because they are Trisha Paytas' nude. So Trisha starts this video off very serious. Like I said, she is very serious. She does look visibly upset, but not like she's been crying. Kind of like she understands the severity of what's going on. She does say the past couple years she has kind of like been avoiding drama and avoiding talking about people because she used to talk about people a lot. You know, she's a whole Frenemies podcast and then the Enemies podcast. But I'm like, girl, it wasn't like a couple years ago, maybe like a year max or something. That stuff didn't happen that long ago, but you know what, we'll just let that one slide for now. Also, you know, she has mental illness, and because of her mental illnesses, things trigger her, but she is working on identifying and managing her triggers, which good for her. And she's been trying to stay in her own lane, but she admits like this is getting really big, so she has to speak on it, especially from the position that she's in where she has a podcast with Colleen. They just started this podcast. And she says, like, you know, she and Colleen were friends, but they weren't like close friends. Like, you know, after Trisha's baby was born, like Colleen reached out and they talked and stuff. And after Colleen, one of her babies was born, Trisha went to her house, met her baby. They even did a collab mukbang together. Like, they were friendly. They did collabs frequently enough. They had, it seemed like recently become a little closer because it was more like the mom friends. And, you know, they're both actually people who started off on YouTube doing very problematic things and still do problematic things and have kind of shifted into doing like mommy vlogger content kind of. So there is that bond right there between them. But Trisha is very adamant that she was not aware of all the stuff that is coming out, which I'm like, you didn't know anything about the Adam McIntyre video from 2020? Like, at all? I find that hard to believe. I did go back and kind of like peek at Frenemies to see if they talked about it, but they never did. Like, I don't think Adam was really mentioned on Frenemies until actually Trisha left and Donna, Ethan Klein's mom, like, was in an episode. I think that was when they first mentioned Adam McIntyre. So, like, I can't really find anywhere to publicly say that Trisha knew, but it's just kind of surprising that she didn't see it. So while she wasn't aware of the allegations, that she does say that talking to minors as an adult is her hard stop. That is a boundary, that is a line that she does not like crossed. It doesn't really matter. She thinks it's weird. And so because of this, she was very shocked to hear about these group chats and everything that were coming out. She also says, you know, that she's a hurt, but she does feel like, you know, people can change and grow and take accountability and learn from their mistakes, which is interesting because Trisha, I feel like, has had issues with that in the past, and there are still some things that she hasn't taken accountability for, but once again, I guess we're just gonna let that slide. Trisha says that before the video like went live, I think, Colleen actually sent her the link to this video. I am not sure why she decided to send Trisha this. I don't think Trisha really knows either. Maybe she thought that the video was funny and that Trisha might find it funny too. But Trisha didn't respond to it, which, I mean, I guess that makes sense. What do you even say to that? Like, can you imagine being Trisha and then you get this video and you're like, how do I even respond to this? I wouldn't respond. Trisha does say before this, when stuff started to come out and rumors started to come out of how Colleen would talk about Trisha and all these group chats and things, Trisha, had been in contact with Colleen because she understands more than anybody what it's like to have everybody on the internet calling you out all at once. So she did kind of like feel bad for Colleen. She was trying to be like a friend of sorts. Eventually, though, a few weeks ago, she got dragged into it because she was hearing rumors that about the watch parties and the sending of her photos. And Trisha says, as a sex worker, she also has to have a very firm stance about all of this stuff with the sending of her nudes, with it being unsolicited, with there being a minor involved, because people in her industry already get a very bad rep and she doesn't want it to seem like she's condoning any of this at all. She's vehemently against everything that has gone down and transpired in this situation and is completely denouncing it. The other aspect is that like Colleen was supposed to be her friend enough, but would send these pictures, had somebody or was paying for her content and then was stealing it and sharing it around and then making fun of her behind her back and then would have her over to her house. Trisha says this is the lowest form of human. Trisha is not embarrassed, well, maybe a little embarrassed, but she's more embarrassed for Colleen. Like, this is the kind of stuff that she has to stoop to. And, as an adult woman, like, who thinks this stuff is okay? But Trisha is hurt by everything that was said, and this stuff wasn't really a long time ago. This was like, the blackface thing was 2018. She's in these group chats even a couple weeks ago. She says like Colleen had just given birth. She went over to her house for a mukbang, and then not too long after, she had a viewing party of Trisha Paytas' content. It just sounds like Colleen has no empathy or like any kind of remorse or anything for any situations. Like, it's not even just like mean girl behavior. It's just like kind of sick and scary. Anytime she like expresses like a tiny bit of remorse, it just feels more like manipulation to me. It makes me think of this video clip that I've kind of seen going around. I can't really watch the full thing, but I believe Colleen is she's telling a story about when she faked a dog biting her and had it killed, or she may have killed it herself. I don't know. The clip popped up like in my TikTok and I was like, she started talking about hurting a dog and I could not watch it. Animals are my soft spot, especially when people talk about hurting them. I can't even handle hearing about pain being inflicted on animals. So circling back to the text that Trisha had heard about, the viewing parties, everything, she said she asked Colleen again. So she's given Colleen 2 different opportunities to come forward, to, be honest, to be remorseful about things. She asked her what this was, if this was true. And this was before like the actual messages were leaked, before Johnny actually showed proof that he received these. And Colleen lied to Trisha and told her she never sent any photos, that one of her followers actually is the one that sent her the photos. When now we see in the messages, that's a complete lie. She's the one that's sending these messages to people unsolicited right after she's had a baby. And one of these people actually might be somebody who is 14 years old. And Colleen would say to Trisha, everything is taken out of context and it's all lies. So then what's the context for these messages, Colleen? You gave us nothing but a crappy song on a ukulele, no proof, nothing, and every day something worse comes to light. And Trisha gave Colleen several chances to come forward and be honest. Instead, Colleen chose to double down on the blatant lies. Like, does she not know that people can just see right through this? Trisha calls Colleen barbaric and misogynistic. You could tell that Trisha just wants to like nip this in the bud, this whole situation, and get ahead of it before any big drama like follows upon her for it. She once again continues to denounce Colleen's actions and her interactions with minors, sharing any unsolicited photos, and apologizes to those people that it was her photos that were being sent to these people. She completely apologizes for that. And she's pretty upset, like, basically that Colleen had stabbed her in the back and lied to her multiple times. It's weird. Like, Colleen doesn't seem to see any issue with any of her behavior at all. Like, normal, well-adjusted adults don't do things like have malicious viewing parties of their friends' adult content that they make a living from, or have group chats with people who are 14 younger. Like, that's not normal behavior. Making degrading jokes with minors at friends or other fans' expense, that's definitely not normal. And the blog that the writing assistant April wrote about Colleen and about like the incestual and rapey jokes that Colleen wanted, I don't know, it kind of demonstrates that there's this weird cognitive dissonance of sorts for Colleen. She just doesn't comprehend that she's just wildly inappropriate. Like, it's not funny. And the reason she's gotten as popular as she is because literally just children who don't totally understand her jokes find it humorous, but any adult finds it alarming. Not to mention, it seems like she kind of strives to surround herself with younger people, especially because she interacts so closely with her fans, who she knows are majoritarily minors. And she prompts situations through her shows and through jokes that are inappropriate for young kids to see, because then it makes it difficult for them to identify real-life dangerous situations. And she's been making millions of dollars off of it. And then not to mention, she makes these jokes in her videos and on her live shows, and then she fosters this kind of stuff further within her own live chat. How can she not see the issue here? How can she just make light of this kind of stuff in her video? How can she continue to pretend to care about her fans, but then continue to dehumanize them in video and on stage? She is disgusting, to say the least. Like I said, I do think it is interesting that really all this came to light not like came to light, but like came back to the surface because she started doing a podcast with Trisha Paytas. People weren't really talking about Colleen Ballinger as intensely as they are now. Sure, there were some people like Adam McIntyre did kind of sometimes talk about her family channel. I know a few other people did, but like she wasn't getting media scrutiny and attention until she paired up with Trisha Paytas again. I think maybe what a part of it was is that people see Trisha as problematic, and they were like, wait, how can Colleen Ballinger or Miranda Sings be okay with doing a podcast with Trisha Paytas, somebody who's very problematic, that then kind of turned people to look more at Colleen's past and see what brought her to cross paths with Trisha Paytas in the first place. Once again, opened that Pandora's box of shit all over Colleen Ballinger. So that is it for today's video. I wonder if Colleen is going to be making another statement or something. I mean, this is just getting bigger and bigger. And honestly, like, her ukulele video made everything a million times worse. I still have no idea what she was thinking with that. At this point, it's not even poking the bear. She just literally lit an entire place on fire. Anyway, at the time of writing this, I did see that both Johnny and Adam McIntyre have watched Trisha's video and responded to that. So I'm gonna get this video up and ready for you guys, and then I'm gonna go watch their videos and see what they have to say about Trisha's video. And I will see you guys in my next video, possibly recapping what their opinions were. I will see you guys next time. Laters. Bye.